Helene Godden, and
Helene Gluten.
Godin. We talked about the pronunciation. My apologies.
No
Um,
worries.
and Kathy Dumas of By the Way Bakery. They have 4 locations in the New York area and Connecticut, and they're really wonderful New York style bakery, as they call it, just so happens to be gluten-free and dairy-free. So I will stop chit-chatting and I will enlarge in their screen so you can see their lovely faces and learn more about today's recipes.
Okay. All right, well, we are super excited to be here. This was promoted as Baking with Helene and Kathy, but it's actually Baking with Kathy and Helene tagging along, because Kathy is our Chief Operating Officer and runs our kitchen and oversees logistics and purchasing and all things, by the way. So I'm going to more play the role of Vanna White and be passing ingredients, etc. But a little bit more about By the Way Bakery. As Mara said, it's a dedicated gluten-free, dairy-free, kosher parve bakery. So the recipes that you're going to be looking at are both gluten-free and parve. You may have questions about ingredients, so I'm going to just start off by saying that when we do our baking at By the Way, we make our own flour mix. And in that flour mix is white rice, brown rice, sorghum, potato starch, tapioca, and a touch of xanthan gum, depending on what the recipe is. And so if you were to take all of these flours that I just told you about, including the xanthan gum, and purchase them as is, you would end up spending $37.74 if you went to the Food Town in Hastings-on-Hudson. So what we would recommend is, we can give you the proportions for our flour mix, but as Mara's going to share in the chat, there are a couple of brands that I know of but have not necessarily tested that should replicate our flour mix for your purposes. Our flour mix we now make in 2,000-pound batches every Sunday. And I don't think you're ever going to have a need for that much flour mix. So all of the ingredients are available as Bob's Red Mill products. You can order them on Amazon, or you could buy Bob's 1-to-1 flour mix and get presumably great results. I know that when I get a little antsy and I don't have any of our flour mix at home, that's what I will test for some of our recipes, and I've gotten excellent results. I can also say that Orly's Sydney blend would probably get you very good results. Pamela's is a well-respected brand, and of course there's Thomas Keller's Cup for Cup gluten-free flour. The only issue with that is it does have dairy, so it's certified kosher, but it's not parve. And as I stated earlier, we are a dedicated parve bakery, which means that we've never even tested any of these recipes with butter. But in my personal experience, butter makes everything better. So if you're not serving a meat meal and you want to play with these recipes, trying them out with butter, we'd love to hear your results. Feel free to send me an email after this presentation. My email is helene@btwbakery.com. I'd love to hear from you. So I think we're now ready to start, Kathy.
We'll start by doing the recipe for sugar cookies. I've got everything in front of me here, and I'm sure that you have access to the recipe. I'm going to take everything that is dry and mix it together first, just so that we have that ready when we need it to add it to the wets. Of course, BTW flour mix. I'm going to add xanthan gum, baking soda, baking powder, salt, cinnamon, The sugar, I'm not. The sugar I'm going to add with the eggs because in reality, sugar is considered a liquid. When you do this, I recommend that you really mix it well, okay? And make sure also check the date on the baking soda, check the date on the baking powder. You don't want to use anything that's expired because it's not going to give you the consistency that you need. Just gonna try and mix it in. Well, you can also, if you wanted to, just sift it all together. That'll work also. You can also pre-mix it in the mixer. Many, many ways to do it. Just make sure that it really, really is mixed with. Now wets. I'm sure most of you are familiar with a KitchenAid mixer.
And let's push it over, I think, so you can, the viewers can see it a little better. Just got this great attachment for my KitchenAid.
Love this.
That, you know how hard it is to move a KitchenAid usually? It was available on Etsy. Our KitchenAid now slides anywhere we want it to go.
The first ingredient I'm going to put in here is milk, and that's our butter substitute.
Yes. So we use, by the way, 3 different butter substitutes. We use melt for some recipes. We use Earth Balance buttery sticks for others. And we also use melt that we buy in bulk, food service size, which is comes in 30-pound boxes. And the difference between the 2 melts is the bulk one doesn't have soy. So we I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. The Earth Balance. We use Earth Balance buttery sticks and Earth Balance bulk. The bulk we use when we can because it doesn't have soy, and whenever we can take out additional allergens, we do. The problem is that the bulk of Earth Balance has a bit more water in it, and so it doesn't give us quite the same results. My guess is if you were to try some things for baking purposes using the Earth Balance soy-free, it's a bit more watery and you won't get the same buttery richness that you would if you used the sticks.
I'm going to, this is just like you would cream sugar and butter before you start cooking. You want it to come up nice, you want it to come up light and fluffy. About a 5-minute mix on it. And don't melt the butter. Don't melt the milk. Always use it at room temp, please.
Right, so not chilled.
Not chilled.
Not chilled. So
Once this comes out, once this becomes light and fluffy, the next thing that I'm going to do with it is that I'm going to add the dry ingredients into it. First, I'm going to do some maple syrup and some vanilla extract yet. And of course, after that, I'm going to sit and make sure. Nervous.
So, well, I tell people that when I first started testing baking, because I wasn't a baker till I quit my job as a lawyer after 22 years, I developed a system that I like to call Beyonce baking, which was that I would lay out all my ingredients on the right, and as I added them to the bowl, I would move them to the left, as Beyonce would say. And then I put it in the oven, and every once in a while I'd see the salt on the right-hand side of the counter and know that I hadn't quite succeeded.
Now this is 1 egg. Already, I've just got it mixed, okay? I'm not going to entirely shut it off. I'm just going to let it mix and go in slowly.
It's really amazing that we don't hear the mixer at all.
We've worked very hard on both lighting and sound.
And the maple syrup really does make a difference in this recipe.
Right, it gives it,
Flavor, nice consistency.
right, the maple syrup,
Adds to the sweetness.
all right, I think that the maple syrup, most of our recipes contain conventional granulated sugar, but the maple syrup in our sugar cookies give them that. I like to think of them almost like the animal crackers you used to eat when you were a kid. They came in the little zoo boxes. It has a really nice flavor, but when you're buying your ingredients, you should do what we do, and we do it at a massive scale. But always buy the best in class. Use the best vanilla you can find. We use Nilsson Massey. Buy the best maple syrup, which is actually, when you look at the grading on maple syrup, B is the richer, better flavor. Who knew?
Helene, we are getting a few comments about your baking flour ratios. What do you think is the best way of communicating that? Would you like to share it later?
I mean, if anyone has we'll share it after the Zoom, but I
Okay.
can give it to you now. If anyone has a paper and pen, the best I can do for you for the ratios for our flour mix will yield 18 cups worth. So you would want to do 6 cups of white rice flour, 4 cups of potato starch, 3 cups of brown rice flour, 3 cups of sorghum flour, and 2 cups of tapioca starch. And getting it down to 18 cups from 2,000 pounds was really a challenge. So I can't recommend it any smaller. That's why I truly think that the best way to do gluten-free baking at home is to buy a commercial mix.
Thank you. And Jenny, I know that you asked for us to repeat that. I actually had a hard time keeping notes also, but we will share, we'll make sure that everyone gets the ratios via email.
You want me to say it again?
Sure.
I'm happy to. Okay. Tell me if I'm going too fast, because I have a tendency to do that. You would take
1 second. I'm just letting them know that I've already added the dries.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Kathy is it. I don't want to distract her from what Kathy's doing. But it's 6 cups white rice flour, 4 cups potato starch, 3 cups brown rice flour, 3 cups sorghum flour, and 2 cups tapioca. And then another advantage of getting a pre-made mix is that the xanthan gum is already mixed in. We play with the amount of xanthan gum depending on the recipe, because that's the binder. That's what replaces the gluten when you do gluten-free baking. And of all the items I shared with you, the xanthan gum is the most expensive. All the other bags, which are £1 each, were under $5.50 by Westchester County prices, and the xanthan gum was $11.50 for half of that. For I believe it's 8 ounces. Yep,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Okay, this dough is almost ready. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a piece of plastic, dump this dough, and you're not going to use it for 24 hours.
But you don't have to stay with us all night.
No, because we do have dough prepared.
We have come prepared. Do you need a spatula, Kathy? Okay. Speaking of being prepared, Kathy came with everything.
Then you can show them when we're done, they should look like this.
Yes. Well, you're gonna decorate them,
Yes.
and then we'll show. Okay.
So just to clarify, if your recipe, if your pre-made store-bought flour includes xanthan gum, should you add additional
No.
xanthan gum? Okay.
And I believe I specified that in the typed copies, and if not, Mara, feel free to edit them before distributing them. How does that sound?
Great. Great. And then a really interesting question was about the grain of flour. Do you recommend going to a super fine grain, or we're getting head nods? So can you speak to that in terms of how a home
You always want to get the finest gluten-free flours you can. If someone is not invested in presenting, like you go to a gluten-free bakery and people will say it's sandy or grainy, it's because they didn't go that extra step and buy there's that extra fine. There's one brand that would market itself years ago as the cashmere of brown rice flour.
That's effective. And is there a way, if you aren't thrilled with the store-bought texture and you want it to go finer, do you have any suggestions on how people could make it finer at home, or just buy it done already?
I think they just have to look for a high-end brand.
Great. Okay, wonderful. And George is curious if there's another starch that you would substitute for potato starch.
We have no experience with that. What happened when I started down this journey, in 2010, I had no idea how to bake, which really, but so that was very liberating because I had no guardrails, no rules. And I just went on this mission, and there was not nearly as much information about gluten-free baking then, but I went on a mission to learn as much as I can. And I just experimented with different flours. I tried teff flour, which is from Ethiopia. I tried millet flour. I tried corn flour. And I spent about 4 months formulating a blend that would work, because now it wouldn't be cost effective for us to do it. But back then there weren't even many brands, pre-made blends available. So I spent 4 months formulating just the flour mix, testing it on the 6 recipes that I thought were essential to open a bakery. Brownies, chocolate chip cookies, and blueberry muffins were 3 of them. And I came up with this formula that worked for those 6 recipes. I then put the flour mix on lockdown and decided that that is what I would use in testing every recipe going forward. And if a recipe didn't work with our flour mix, I started with a new recipe, not a new flour mix. And it has made our lives, and by the way, so much easier. Because we would not want to mix 1,000 pounds of one mix and 1,000 pounds of another.
That absolutely makes sense.
Okay, this dough is going into the refrigerator, wrapped 24 hours. And my cold dough is coming out. I'm going to use only half of it for now. And keep the other half in the refrigerator, okay? It's easier to work with when it's cold. I'm going to use a little bit of white rice flour. It's really fine, it's nice, it doesn't stick.
Right, because when you do conventional baking, you know how you will flour the board to do certain kinds of doughs? We flour it with a rice flour.
I prefer to use the white rice flour versus even a cornstarch, because you want to use whatever was in the recipe. And it's white rice here. Doesn't add any flavor, any taste. It really does a nice job on holding down dough.
And this is from a woman who spent 40 years or
Easy.
more, when she came on her interview, which by the way lasted 7 minutes before I fell in love with Kathy. But she came from the world of gluten and butter.
And cream.
And cream. lots
of cream.
Lots of cream.
Everything that you could imagine that we don't use now. this dough is, I should tell you, it's like Play-Doh. Okay, you can play with it, you can push it together. If it breaks, you re-roll it. Really, really is very, very difficult. No damage whatsoever. You want to roll this out to be about 1/4 of an inch thick.
Someone in the chat has asked if you've used, that dough almost looks like pie crust. Has that,
Similar, really similar in texture.
could you use it as a pie
Really
crust?
good comparison.
So, but they want to know, can't you use it for pie crust?
I would use it not for maybe pie crust, but I would maybe use it for bottom crust. You could use it
For a bar?
for a bar, maybe a bottom of a tart or something, and par bake it depending on what you're doing, okay? But sugar dough is cookie dough,
Right, and in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but hopefully we'll be doing a show on Hamantaschen in a month or two, and when we do that, that dough works nicely as a
Yes.
pie, works better as a pie crust.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
In the meantime, your oven should be preheated, which we completely forgot to even think about, 375 degrees.
The good news is we've already baked our cookies.
Yes.
So it's okay that we didn't preheat the oven.
I probably could have used a little bit of flour underneath, but I have a spatula to lift them up here. Right, switch. Spatula.
Over here. The part of my kitchen that you can't see looks a little like an operating room, or my vision of an operating room with all the tools laid out, all the instruments. So Kathy's now putting the cut cookies. They're all Stars of David.
This sugar dough will stay pretty much this size, okay? But just make sure that you don't put them too close together, because you really don't want the cookies sticking together. You don't want to be breaking a cookie apart.
Right, when she says stay this size, what she means is sometimes doughs will spread. This particular dough does not do a lot of spreading. It keeps its shape pretty nicely.
Mark has a question that I love. He says, does 375 work for both convection and regular ovens?
Well, we're using an air oven at work.
Yeah, I mean, so
It's hard to say, but probably the convection. I've already got some more cut out. You don't have to wait for me. I would say the convection is going to bake a little bit faster for you, and it might bake a little bit hotter for you. Check the cookie.
Which I think is probably true for every cookie ever, that you
Right,
should keep your eyes on it.
Use every recipe,
Right,
no
and-
matter what you're making.
and in fact, you look in a cookbook, but they don't know your oven. My oven tends to run a little cooler. Other people's ovens may run hotter. It depends. When I put it on convect, the air doesn't blow the same way as your oven might blow. And when we bake it, by the way, I was telling Mara before we started, we now bake out of a 16,000 square foot facility. We have 3 industrial ovens, each of which, the way it works is we can fit 28,
Racks,
yeah, right, 28,
trays,
28 trays
a rack.
per rack. Each oven can hold 2 racks. The racks hook on to the top of the oven. When we close the door and turn the oven on, the racks spin and we end up with even baking. Very
I told Helene before, my father sells restaurant equipment. I would love to see that.
Oh, they're like walk-ins. They're like, open the door, you can almost walk right in.
Really, really interesting.
Mhm.
But now we get
Anyone who wants a tour and happens to be in New York, including you, Mara, you're only in Washington Heights, let us know. And we would love to give you the royal treatment.
You can
Thank you.
also, I forgot, you can keep the dough in the refrigerator for a few days, okay?
that was another question. That's great. When does the texture change at all, or can we define a few days?
Nope, dough holds up pretty well.
Great.
Really, really pretty well.
Wonderful.
Cookies into the oven.
All right, we're gonna pretend the oven's ready. And voila, baked cookies.
So this is the color that you're looking for. Okay, don't let them get too dark in the oven. Okay. In the meantime, Colleen, you can do a little bit, and I'm going to set up for royal icing.
Okay, so
So normally what you would do is you would bake the cookies. Now you've got to cool them. Okay. In the meantime, while you're cooling, we're going to make royal icing. The one specific thing about royal icing, biggest mistake anybody ever makes, is they don't clean the mixer, the beater, the bowl, or anything. I don't want to see, nobody cleans good enough, but any bit of grease, little bit of grease breaks down this icing.
right, and when she says grease, she also means the butter substitute or the
Everything.
butter, like
Mhm.
anything that has oil in it will affect the royal icing.
People are curious about the naming of royal icing. Is that a name you have given it, or is that a technical?
It's in the recipe, and the royal icing is the glaze that you color to put on the cookie.
And we're going to just, on the beater, we're going to change. We're not going to use the paddle anymore. We're going to use the whip, okay? Because we really want to make sure that the egg whites whip nice. I'm used to 140 quart mixer, so I don't know what to do with them.
Right, and to give you a sense of scale, I fit into the bowl of 140 quart mixer. And in fact, as Mara could tell you, one of the pieces of equipment that you would buy at from a restaurant supplier, it's called a bowl lifter, because the bowl is so big and heavy that what they do is they take it from the mixer, it attaches, it's on rollers, and it attaches to the bowl in this massive mixer. And you then wheel it away, and they can lift it and tilt it onto the trays on the table.
The machine.
That, it's a couple of 100 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to start the egg white mixing. And I know you have this recipe in front of you of 2 egg whites.
Right, 2 egg whites, a cup and a half of confectioner's sugar, a teaspoon of lemon juice, and food coloring. Now, obviously, you're not going to need food coloring for white, but if you want to get blue, or for another holiday, you want to do Valentine's Day cookies, we would use red. St. Patrick's Day, you could use green. It's an all-purpose icing.
The other thing that you can do, if you find that you want this royal icing stiffer, is you can use a little bit of cream of tartar. Just like a pinch.
A pinch of cream of tartar.
People are asking about using raw eggs, and obviously you're using this icing in your store, so it's food safe.
We buy pasteurized. We don't just crack an egg and add the egg white. We buy pasteurized egg whites.
So for people at home, do you expect them to do that, or is
They
a
can find pasteurized egg whites. I don't know enough about food safety, but I'm told that you pasteurize that regular egg whites will not cause a problem, but I can't guarantee that. So when in doubt, buy pasteurized egg whites.
thank you for clarifying that. And I'm not sure if you've experimented with a vegan icing. Obviously without the egg whites. Have you done chickpea water or any other binder that is vegan for icing?
So for this particular recipe, you have to use the egg whites.
Great. And of course, if someone else had their own gluten-free icing recipe, it would look nice on these cookies also. Okay.
Kathy is whipping it. I'm just whipping egg whites down, and I'm going to transfer these cookies onto. Because we're going to dip some of these with royal icing, and we just want to make sure that if it's gonna drip, you don't want it on anything else. Your bowls. Be right there. To dip my soup up roughly. Oh, wait a minute. I've already colored my icing. And it takes a while for that to whip. This. Is the consistency. And this is the consistency that you're looking for. Over here. I wasn't sure where I was shooting. That's all.
So it's a little like, it's like fluff.
Marshmallow.
It's like marshmallow fluff, like a slightly softer version of marshmallow fluff.
This is the royal icing you're going to use if you're going to pipe it. Okay, the royal icing that we're going to use for glazing already have a little bit of water added to it because you want it to be a little bit thinner.
Ellen is curious how long the cookies will actually keep after they're baked and frosted. Would you recommend having them the day of, or would they keep?
Oh, these can last at least 5 days.
Great. And would you refrigerate them?
No. No, they'll get soft.
Okay. Great.
But you can see this is different.
Yeah.
Almost there. Yeah.
And on a similar note, people are curious if you can freeze the dough at any point or the baked cookie.
Can we freeze the dough, Kathy? You can freeze the cookies, right? You can, Kathy. You don't like you don't like to freeze the dough.
You know, we've never really frozen dough.
Right.
After it's been baked, you know.
You can freeze the baked cookies, you can freeze the decorated cookies.
You can freeze them this way.
Right, flat. Flat. If you stack them when they defrost, you can freeze them if they're undecorated stacked, but if they're already decorated, if you stack them when they defrost, the color from the top will go onto the bottom of the cookie above.
Okay, do you want to show them like this?
Yeah. Can you see?
Can you see it?
Here, let's take it. Slide it over. Can you see the consistency?
And you see that it's not moving off the whip.
It's very stiff. Like fluff. Which I can't get.
So, okay. I'm going to use this because it's a nice consistency.
Very
I like
cute.
it better. than the one
Too
that I
much you brought.
pre-made. I'm sure that most of you are really familiar with using a parchment bag. Just gonna cut the tip off. The coupler comes in 2 parts.
The coupler is what holds the tip in place. It couples the bag with the tip.
A little bit wider.
Yeah. Yes, I have 2 bowls.
Another one. Slippery in my hand. The threaded piece into the inside.
Of the coupler.
I'm using a number 2 tip to do the decorating. And that's just gonna screw on. Roll the bag down so the top stays nice and clean for you. If you're going to use it straight out of here, the best thing to do is either take a damp towel or a damp paper towel, keep it covered, because this royal icing, you want it to dry. And this will dry pretty
You
quickly.
don't want it
Well, you want it to dry in your cookie.
on the cookie,
But
but
you
you
don't
don't want
want
it
it
to
dry
dry
in
in
your
the bowl.
Twist it. And you're ready to go.
That was a pro move.
40 years of practice.
I want to put this into this because I'm going to use a blue bag also.
So you
I
want,
want, I'll make it stiff colored blue.
oops, wait, so
Do you
what,
know what I'm
so,
saying?
yes, so you want me to wash this?
No.
I want me to hold it, I'm holding it.
No, you can throw it into the white.
Oh, I can put it in the white, you sure?
Yes,
Because once I do it, I can't change it.
that's right.
Okay,
I have white here.
in. So Kathy's just dipping the top of the cookie in. Giving it a little shake.
I could make it maybe even a little bit thinner. Touch maybe more water. Maybe it's been sitting
Do you want me to get some water?
just a touch. Otherwise, it's going to come too thick on the cookie. But we have plenty of cookies to play with, so. And the reason you're going to put it on the screen. Not much. I just want it to run a little bit better.
So someone just private messaged me saying, well, 24 hours is a long time and these cookies look really delicious. Is patience a virtue here, or could we put the dough in the freezer to sort of speed up that time?
That's that's a
You
trick
know-
that I would try to do, and Kathy will tell you it doesn't work.
You don't do that. It's a gluten-free dough.
Gluten-free baking is more of a challenge because everything is precarious. It's more weather sensitive, it's more environmentally sensitive, and you can't rush things. It requires a bit more care.
If only we could nosh with you through the screen.
That would be fun, right? I'm only gonna dip some half.
Right. This is my favorite look, the half dip cookie.
White. And we'll dip some white. We'll leave some plain. And I don't know if you want to show them the assortment that we
Well,
made.
once you do that, we'll show, because once again, we've come prepared
Oh,
and we
sorry.
have
You
finished.
can sprinkle if you.
This I'm really good at.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a baker. I'm an excellent businesswoman and my sprinkling skills, outstanding. So this is a silver sanding sugar that gives the cookies just a nice little bit of bling. And makes them pop a bit more.
I'm just adding a little bit of water to the white. So some cookies will be white.
And when we sell them in our stores, for Hanukkah, we offer them in a pack of half dipped white and half dipped blue, all with the silver sanding sugar. And it makes a really, we sell them in a bag of 6, and it makes a really nice gift.
It really got messy here.
Laura is asking if you could use a pastry brush to apply the icing.
And you're gonna get the lines.
That makes sense, yeah. But it'll work. It'll get on the cookie, but it won't
It'll
be.
get on the cookie. Yes, it'll get on the cookie.
My husband likes to use the example, can you freeze milk? Yes, the problem is when you defrost it, it'll taste terrible.
Another question we're having, just about how things work at your bakery. Do you normally measure in cups or do you measure by weight?
Everything is by weight,
By grams
by grams.
and lots of grams. Lots of grams.
And, back in the day when we did use measuring cups, this is years and years and years ago, we discovered that not all measuring instruments are the same. A tablespoon from one brand isn't exactly the same volume as a tablespoon from another brand. So that's why professional bakers do it all by the gram.
We have some, I guess, experienced bakers who have scales who
Right.
are interested in the ratio for the weight. Is it possible we could get that and send that out later?
The ratio of what?
Of the flour mix
Yes.
by weight. Okay, great.
Yes.
We'll send that out.
Believe.
Yes, what are you looking for?
I need you to sprinkle the
Ah.
cookies.
I'm sprinkling again.
The last 2 cookies, if I glaze them, I'm not going to be able to trim it, okay? So I'm going to trim the plain cookie so you can see the difference. You mix that a little bit.
Mix it.
Mhm,
Not that blue.
mhm.
You want it more blue?
Yeah, you can incorporate some of this.
Sort of from here.
Mhm.
You are watching me do more baking tonight than I've done in the last year at By the Way Bakery. because I am fortunate to have others to take care of that. Blue enough, Kath, or more?
I'm just gonna show them how to put this on here, 2 different ways. I'm gonna bead that one. And this one is just a straight one.
Okay.
So 18 cups of flour is quite a lot. For people who may not bake all that often, could they save their flour mix by keeping the flour mix in the freezer?
Yes.
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 Or cut the recipe maybe that you didn't have.
But they're still gonna have to buy
Oh,
the
yeah, that's
the-
true.
right? And you're gonna, in order to make those 18 cups, you're gonna have to buy
Wow.
5 pounds of flours. Because I think the smallest you can buy is a pound of white rice flour, a pound of brown rice flour, etc. Okay, Kathy's now showing another technique.
Just give some spacing because it will spread a little bit.
Should we move that tray over so people can see a little better, Kath?
That you can get rid of. This is, I don't know where to be for you.
That's, I think they can see. Can you see better now, guys?
Yeah, we can see your hand motions, but at the end, I'm sure it'll be helpful to show it, lift it up.
Oh, of course. The problem with doing it on Zoom is we can't move the camera around.
Yeah.
Much more time consuming. But if you're going to adhere anything to this cookie, you need to do it while the cookie is wet. Like Helene can sprinkle this. And some people will take it and turn it upside down into this, and it'll just be this design that stays sprinkled. Okay.
Okay, so show them this one because I don't think we have an example of that finished while I get the other finished ones.
Okay. And voila.
A miracle. So
You can touch them. They don't move. They're hard. That's what you're looking for.
right. So royal icing is very different than frosting, which you want it to be light and fluffy and creamy. But we have, this is a solid one. You wait for the white to dry or the blue to dry before you pipe on the second finish. When you add your sanding sugar, you want, can you see that? When you add the sanding sugar, that requires the cookie to be wet, the icing to be wet. And as I said, these are my favorite, the half dipped Stars of David.
Because
All
once
that's left is to take a bite.
I'm sorry?
All that's left is to take a bite.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly, which believe me, keeping my girlish figure working in a bakery is not so easy.
Okay.
I was saying that in jest, and also I think people really do want to see the way the cookie crumbles.
Go for it.
I am always happy to take one for the team and take a bite.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Great. Thank you for indulging us.
No problem.
Look at that.
Okay, any more questions on
Sugar.
sugar cookies? Okay,
Let's,
Great. we are ready to pivot to arugula.
Arugula is going to take 2 different recipes. And sometimes 3, depending on what you want to put on the inside. We're using a simple arugula today. We're going to do a raspberry arugula. We're going to make arugula dough, and then we're going to make a sugar, walnut, cinnamony, sprinkly inside filling. And then I'm going to coat it with raspberry jam. Okay, the dough. So we do the same thing here. We're changing now to a paddle, not a wire whip, okay? And you want everything at room temp, if possible. We're going to use earth balance.
Right, because as we said, at our bakery, we rely on 3 different kinds of butter substitutes, and this is the Earth Balance bulk or stick. Earth Balance stick,
It's stronger earth balance.
right? It's, as I said, it's the water content that you need to look at, and the water content in the buttery sticks works better for these recipes.
This is going to be a little bit of dough because we're making 2 logs.
Right, we're making a total of 28 cookies.
This is not a 2,000-pound dough.
Right, right,
You know, where this time of the year, we're making a lot of arugula.
right, and don't even get us started on sufganiyot.
Oh. Well, I'm going to put earth balance, sugar, and vanilla. Yeah. Should go pretty quickly because it's not a heavy duty dough. We good on time.
We're good on time. Are we good on time, Mara?
we're good. We're here till 9 if
That's perfect.
great.
Again, I'm gonna mix dries. And cream cheese will just go into, cream cheese is cream cheese substitute,
Yes,
not the real thing.
we use Chifuti because again, we're a part of bakery. There are other wonderful cream cheese substitutes out there. There's a company called Wayfair that makes a delicious coconut-based cream cheese substitute, and Kite Hill makes an excellent cream cheese substitute. Our baking needs have gotten much easier over the years because plant-based spreads have become so popular.
I'll just repeat because a few people have joined since we last said this. By the Way Bakery is certified dairy-free, so they haven't experimented with real dairy products. But why, you know, if you're at home and you're experimenting, you're welcome to try
We don't anticipate that you will have a problem. In fact, we think you'll end up with
It tastes
with an
very
even
nice taste.
with an even better product. We just can't say with absolute certainty because again, we can't bring dairy into our kitchen or we'd lose our part of certification.
Well, this is mixing. I'm just gonna mix the dries together. And this is just baking powder, the xanthan gum, salt and the flour. And label them all and put them in so I wouldn't miss an ingredient item.
Right? We don't have any room to go to the left.
No,
When you're using salt in your baking, are you using kosher salt or fine grain salt?
it's fine grain.
Kosher salt is more for finishing. Did you pick up all of that?
Yeah. Not a lot of dough for this. And once that's creamed together,
We're gonna show them what it looks like creamed.
can you? You know what, I can take it off.
See here.
Great.
When you turn the mixer back on, remember low, because in the
Right.
bakery, we've got a protective cover, so it doesn't happen, but at home, we don't.
And you can end up with powder all over your ceiling.
So I'm going to mix this a little bit, then I'm going to scrape it down and mix it again. And this dough the same way, you're going to turn it out, and it's also going to get a 24-hour rest. Funny, in the bakery, we have these big arm covers,
Right.
so that when you're scraping the bowls, you're scraping down. It's like scraping nothing. Now.
Right. The gloves go all the way up to your shoulder so that they can get into that giant 140 quart bowl.
You want to make sure that you get everything off the bottom, so that you've really incorporated everything into the dough.
Because otherwise you can end up with a small pocket of the cream cheese or the butter at the bottom in air quotes.
We moved a teeny bit fast, which is great because of timing, but can you just repeat the order of ingredients that you added to the bowl? And you started with dry and then went to wet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want the list or you want to know? But you always do them separate. You do your dried first and put it to the side, then you do your wet, and then you add the dry to the wet and mix them all together.
Great, thank you.
It's definitely more a homogenized mixture that way. You
Right.
know?
I'm very impressed by that scraper.
Little bit different than a home scraper, right?
And as you can see, it's a softer, lighter dough than the sugar cookie dough.
Sugar cookie dough is a little bit heavier and the maple syrup makes it heavier. Almost nothing left in my bowl. Good scraper. You want this dough refrigerated. You don't want to keep it warm because we're going to roll this dough very thin.
Will this dough rise while it's refrigerated?
No, this neither dough is
Nothing is yeast.
has heat, right, so it won't rise. So our rugula doesn't have the same layers necessarily that some conventional rugula will have. But we think it's equally delicious.
Into the refrigerator it goes.
Okay. And 24 hours later, through the magic of time travel,
It looks beautiful.
This is a little bit more difficult. In the bakery, we roll it out on a sheeter, we cheat. Here, we're gonna roll it out by hand.
a sheeter is an electric rolling pin. And what it is, it's a very large machine. Each arm is probably 4 feet long. Is that right? So when it's put away, the arms come up and over the center. When you take the arms down, you put your dough in the center. You set the thickness and the speed, and you send it back and forth, and it rolls it out for you. Because if you're making thousands of rugula at a time, you can't stand with a rolling pin.
And
Jenny
one-
asked a really great question. Can you use a pasta roller? A pasta sheeter that might be attached to the KitchenAid.
It's a little small.
Yeah, I think you wouldn't get a wide enough triangle.
Yeah.
Rectangle, sorry.
You
Rectangle.
want to almost make a rectangle before you start to roll.
We're a little off screen, so people are curious. While you're on the sheet, do you have rice flour? You just
Yes, we moved it, so now you can see that there's rice flour. Oh, you always want to put a rice flour underneath your dough. You can, I may have said in the ingredients in the recipe that you can use the flour mix, but if it's just the straight rice flour, it'll come out a little better.
And also on your roller pin. If you use a rectangle shape, you have half a chance of getting this right. It's less tedious working. You know, with a round, you take it and roll it and take it and roll it and take it and roll it. This is a little bit different. You're gonna go in both directions.
I just want to share that Colton in the chat thinks that you deserve a glass of wine.
We'll wait till it's over. Thank you very much. We're actually having a wonderful time.
Well, you need to see if it breaks or what to do, that you can patch it.
Right. It's a forgiving dough, right,
Mhm.
Kath?
It's forgiving. We're gonna roll it out into about a 14 by 22 inch roll.
I was very precise in the recipe and said 22 and a half, don't sweat that extra
You
half
know what we're
inch.
gonna do? We're gonna just change it.
Yes.
So they don't have to wait and watch.
Right, so now, voila, this is what you want to end up with.
This is, I'm gonna hold this up so you can see the thickness.
Quite thin.
Quite thin. Mhm. I'm using raspberry jam.
But you can use apricot. Is the other one we use, but I think it would be equally delicious and a little innovative with a peach jam or a
Some
blueberry.
people use fig, blueberry.
Oh, fig would be my favorite.
Do you make your own jams at the bakery, or are these
No,
Oh my goodness,
no.
no.
Well, everything we make is from scratch. That doesn't include the jam, and we don't grow and grind our own rice either. No, we actually use a commercial brand called EFCO that's 100% clean. Clean in that it's all natural, but it comes in 10-pound cans. What I would recommend a comparable all natural like Bon Marie.
Yeah.
Bon Marie is delicious. Hero makes some wonderful jams, but every once in a while, for some reason, the label will say it contains gluten. It may be the time of year or the manufacturing facility. So we couldn't use it.
But use a jam, not a jelly.
But yes, use a jam, not a jelly. And like everything else, if you're going to take the time to bake, use the best quality products on the market that you can find.
I'm seeing the jam that you're using. At least through Zoom, it doesn't look like there's any pieces or remnants. It looks quite emulsified and together. Is that important for the recipe?
Actually, no. If you look at it, it's actually seeded. I don't know.
Okay, great. That's not coming through on Zoom. So thank you for clarifying that you can have something with a little bit of texture.
Yes.
Yes, actually, the more texture, the better.
Right.
And they know that you have in front of you a filling recipe. That's including granulated sugar, light brown sugar, cinnamon, dark raisins, and walnuts.
Which Kathy is pre-mixed.
Pre-mixed for you. I counted out the 36.
The
Yes.
mise en place, the prep is very impressive.
Yes. Originally, when Kathy sent me the recipe, it said 36 raisins, and it's very small. From counting them out, I may have said too many. It will come out to more than 36, but I also love raisins, so.
Is there anything to know if people want to experiment with other toppings and flavors? You mentioned other jams, but if someone wanted to do something else besides a walnut, any thoughts on flavor profiles and textures that you're looking for?
You're talking like if you want to use a pecan or you want to use an almond?
No, if they don't want nuts, you can make it without the nuts. You can even do it as a cinnamon filling.
Correct. Some people will even use the cacao beans.
Right, cocoa nibs.
Cocoa nibs.
Which will give it, we've put cocoa nibs in a few of our products. That'll give it a delicate crunch and a bit of a nice chocolate flavor note without it being a true chocolate filling.
So
We are getting questions about chocolate filling because people love chocolate.
People love chocolate. That's for a different episode.
Okay.
or the cookbook I'm writing.
Great.
I'm gonna roll this like almost like a jelly roll. You can piece it back together. And you can start then on your second roll.
And you're not wed to strictly this recipe in that if you could use our wrapper, our dough, and That's what Google is for, to find an interesting filling that appeals to you. And the thing that I love about baking is no matter how it comes out, if it's made with love, people will enjoy it, or at least they'll have a good laugh for a while.
Once they're rolled,
Okay, now Kathy has done the ready-made rolls.
I'm going to egg wash it. And it's a whole egg, a little bit of water. Brush it on. And the reason that I'm using this is to let this brown and also to attach the demerara sugar.
Right.
Demerara, turbinado,
There are darker sugars in the raw, right, Kathy?
there's raw sugar will work. The Mexican sugar, pancillo, I think they call it.
But again, an egg wash will add to the color of the finished product.
Not too much sugar either on top, just,
Wait, that's not
just,
the sugar, that's the filling.
just enough. It'll add a little bit of crunchiness.
Right, we put demerara sugar on not just the
Muffins.
ragla, but we also will put it on a muffin to give it a nice finish.
Basically, what you're making here is like a flat jelly roll.
Right,
Only this dough is so much easier than using sponge.
right.
And into the oven they go.
Okay,
We're saying 320 degrees for 20
I
minutes.
think we said 350 in the end.
In 350. I do it at 320, but that's in the
That's in our
oven.
commercial oven. So adjusting the oven temp, again, not all ovens are the same in a conventional cookbook. And then when you add on to that, the fact that we bake in a commercial oven, it changes it a bit. So everything will require some experimentation and watching it carefully, but you should end up with delicious results in the end.
So check it. If it looks translucent, let it stay longer in the oven. And this is your finished product.
Can you see?
Just read it now.
So you slice them after they're baked.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. That's the
Un-
best question of the night.
Uncooked biscotti. You know, if you were gonna make biscotti, you slice and then back in the oven again for that extra.
Although biscotti, you bake twice.
Correct.
So you make you still bake it whole for the first bake, then slice it and put it back in the oven for the second bake.
And at this point, you're going to decide how big or how little you want your ruglet to be.
Right.
Normally, we'll cut this into 14 pieces. But
See, and Kathy is so confident, she starts at the end and goes back, and they'll all be the same size. If I was to do this, I would start in the middle and then do outward.
maybe you want
Colleen,
to.
we're getting questions about your cookbook. Would you like to give us any teasers or timelines?
Well, thank you so much. It's called Recipes and Stories from a Beloved Bakery that asterisk, by the way, is gluten-free. And it's about 85% done, both with respect to the recipes and the stories. And I love the stories. And I'm now even more motivated to get it finished by spring.
You said it here to 75 people, so.
Okay, and now rugla.
But you can turn it the other way so they can see the filling.
Oh no,
So
she handed it to me to show you and I'm
I'm
eating
eating
it,
it.
sorry.
It looks great. The raspberry really came through.
it does, yes.
See the
it
color.
really does. I just couldn't cut it in the tray because the angle on the knife
I
was just
bet.
not going right.
So we're getting some similar questions as we got for the sugar cookies. How long would these keep for? Would you store them in the refrigerator or outside of the
Not in
refrigerator?
the refrigerator.
Not in the refrigerator, and again, 5 days.
And is this, you know, if people want to split up the labor of this, could they stick the dough in the freezer at any point? Could they,
Dough can be in the refrigerator.
Dough can be, as we said earlier, you shouldn't freeze dough.
Okay.
At least our gluten.
And it's not a 24-hour and it has to come out. It can stay a day or two.
Okay, great. Jessica's curious of, you know, why not slicing it before baking?
Because it'll all ooze all over.
It'll ooze out. So you want to bake it, you want to let it cool, and then you're going to cut it. Any jams will do that. You're adding the jam for the moistness, and you want to make sure that you keep that moistness in. Otherwise, it would be really, really dry.
Great. So Mark is curious if you're looking for a deeper color of the rugelach, which to me they're coming through deep, but would you keep them in longer? Would you put more sugar on top?
You could do two things. You could put a little more sugar on top, and you could use a direct egg wash instead of lightening it with the water, and it'll come darker for you.
Yeah, great. Okay. People are sharing that the 1-to-1 flours for making cakes tend to crumble and fall apart more easily. Do you have any general tips for that? I know that isn't necessarily related to rugelach, but
You mean which brands? Because there are multiple brands. You know, one trick might be to add a touch of xanthan gum in addition to what's already in the mix, but not too much, because xanthan gum acts as a binder, and at a certain point it adds too much elasticity.
Get like chewing gum.
Right, and it's get like chewing gum, or you know, I once misread a recipe and I had a super ball. So just be careful with how much you use. It should be used very carefully.
And the amount of moisture that you're putting it into the cake. Maybe the crumble is also there's not enough liquid.
Okay.
Great. Would you like to leave us with a closing tip, or you know, is there something that you enjoy eating along with your rugelach? Yes, go ahead.
So my closing tip is have fun. I mean, we take it very seriously because we're running a business, but when you're baking at home, enjoy the process. Have fun. Don't get frustrated if it's not perfect the first time. You know, I had a very sophisticated approach when I started down this journey of opening a bakery. It was bake, bite, throw out. And then I started again till I got something that I loved. So find the joy in the process, and then take pride in what you're serving.
Wonderful. Thank you. I hope everyone enjoys, well, now you know that Helene and Kathy have experimented for you in a certain way. So this recipe will certainly be wonderful. But when you're thinking about your other Hanukkah baked goods or beyond, we hope you find joy in the experimentation and the process. And I just want to wish you all a very happy Hanukkah. We would love to know how your baked goods come out. So look out for the recording to the session if you want to review anything. We'll also be sending out the recipes once again, and I'll put Helene's email in the chat one more time. I'm sure she would also love to hear how you're doing.
Absolutely. It's Helene at btwbakery.com, and please visit our website, btwbakery.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope to see you soon. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, Chag Sameach.